Well, we are so excited to have our next guest here on the forum. If you are a fan of the WWE, formerly WF, we have the three-time World Tag Champion, and we are so excited to have him here. We have Bryan Clark with us. Hi, Bryan.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad we got the little tech issues out of the way, so we're ready to roll.
Hey, we're ready to roll.
Yes, we are.
Twitter was down, so we could be down a little bit. So, yeah. But, Bryan, I'm going to start right off by, I don't know if you ever heard it, but Jim Cornette has an amazing podcast that I've been listening to for years. And he said literally, and I'm not saying you think this, but he said literally, when Bryan Clark came into the WWE and the WCW, if they knew what they were doing, they would have had a superstar. And I agree, because I think WWE, you're not going to say it, but I will. They screwed you over a couple times, and I don't think they treated you properly, and you don't have to comment on that. But one thing Jim Cornette said, he said, if Bryan was in the East with promoters that knew what they were doing at that time, which there were so many of them, he would have been the next Nikita Koloff. And that, to me, is, you can't get any better than that. So I don't want to be too long-winded, but what was your experience? I know all the stories of when you started, but what was your experience with Jim Cornette? Very controversial, but at Smoky Mountain Wrestling, because I think Smoky Mountain Wrestling was pretty awesome.
Fully transparent. I love Jim Cornette. I love working for him in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I actually won the Smoky Mountain Television Beat the Champ title working for Jim. I was
Tracy Smothers.
Yeah,
Tracy Smothers. Yeah.
I was blessed to have Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, sort of take me under his wing and get my foot in the door at Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So yeah, and Jim was great, great to work for. Got some experience under my belt with him, and just was sort of sitting under the learning tree, so to speak, with Jim. And I loved it. I really did.
Now, we would be amiss if we didn't, you two, one of my two favorite tag teams that didn't last a very long time were the Hollywood Blondes and Kronik. I love both those tag teams. And we got it. There you go.
There it is.
We got to give you love. We would be amiss if we didn't give love to Bryan Adams. And I wanted you to talk about your friend and talk about what a great guy and a great wrestler he was.
The best partner and best friend I've ever had in this business, and I've worked with a lot of guys and a few other tag teams, but with Bryan, we just bonded really, really quick once we became a team, and it happened so fast. But we were Bryan's a former military veteran, so am I, both U.S. Air Force veterans, both 6'6", both 290, could really do just about anything we needed to do in the ring. He was a guy that always had my back, and I love traveling with Bryan. Usually when you're on the road that much with someone, or even with a group of people, you need a break, kind of. So, but with Bryan, I cherished every moment around him because he was so funny. And if someone could keep me laughing and in good spirits after I've been on the road for 25 days or 30 days, yeah. That's the kind of guy I want to be around on the road with. And so, yeah, he just a great person to be around, no doubt.
Now, everyone seems to be starting a podcast, and everyone knows how honest we are. I don't barely watch TV anymore. I actually just watch podcasts, and there's a lot of them. And I'm telling you, and I'm not saying this just because Bryan's here, we wanted Bryan to come on because I think his podcast is going to be the next big thing in wrestling. It's so good. Wow. And the guests are amazing. It's raw. I'm telling you, you're going to get amazing information. Let's talk about that. What made you want to do a podcast?
Actually, James, I had wanted to do it for a while. I've had a few here and there just as a guest, like with Conrad Thompson and different people throughout the business, sort of one-offs. I was looking for a good person, a good tag team partner, so to speak. And with Tom Finkel of Manchester over in the UK was a perfect fit. Blessed to have him as my partner. And again, it was just something I was waiting for. I was just like, okay, this got to be right. And I felt that he was the right connection. We've had some amazing guests already. And as far as like you talk about the raw part of it, we got some stuff. We're not even necessarily, we're just having a conversation, which is the best part about it. We're just talking, whether it be about the past or what's going on currently with our guests. It's just all organic and we have fun, but there's so many nuggets and just amazing things that come out of those conversations. And it's happened every single show without us even trying to. We're just ourselves, but yet amazing things blossom out of those conversations.
You have chemistry. You have a great chemistry.
I really like him. He's good. He's a great co-host because, again, he's kind of the opposite of you in a lot of ways, and you guys it's a yin and yang type thing. I think you've got the formula because when Jim Cornette first started, people said, okay, good Lord, he doesn't even show himself, doesn't do video, he's just going to talk. And now he's getting millions of views. He's just on fire. And I think what I like about yours is there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of talking. Talk about some of the people. You've only done 6 shows officially. You've recorded a couple others, but 6 shows. Talk about the guests you've already had on. My gosh.
Well, the French-Canadian Frankenstein, PCO, was our first guest. And I did that on purpose because I'd been friends with Carl for 30 plus years, I'm guessing at least. I got to see him back in October in Montreal, and I told him sort of what I was thinking about, and of course he agreed and turned out to be a fantastic guest. But we just moved on down the line. We had Ernest the Cat Miller, the former world karate champion.
Yeah.
Barry Darso, one half of Demolition, the former world champion also. And then we just finished up with Alex Wright, which was what an insightful conversation that turns out to be. Some things that he told me about some of the things he went through as far as his injuries and things that happened to him in his career. I had no idea, but he just was so very open with us. And so I it was great. I loved it. Probably one of the best ones yet. And it just seems each week they get better and better. And now we are negotiating, talking, asking. I hope to some of our MMA friends that are some MMA legends that are going to be coming on with us here real soon. And a lot of guys that I met, I was at WrestleMania and WrestleCon in Las Vegas last month. So I got to reconnect with some guys, networking a little bit and getting guys that would want to be on the show and would be a good fit. So that's where we're at. But again, each week it just seems to get better and better, and the numbers, and I don't really want to focus on the numbers. I just want to focus on the real conversation of it and just let it happen. So that's sort of what we're doing.
I think you got the right focus. A thing also I noticed in all the videos I watched about you and I've read, probably almost to the point of stalking you the last couple weeks, is that physical fitness, especially weightlifting, is a huge part of your life. Why don't you discuss that? You look great. You look like you could climb in the ring again. I'm sure there's a lot more aches that you want to talk about, but talk about that in your life and how it's affected you.
Oh yeah, that's something, sort of my anchor, I guess you could say, is fitness. Not as much like heavy weight training, like what I did back in my younger years. But I went to Colombia a year and a half ago and I had about 400 million stem cells. I went down to Medellin and did the full from head to toe.
Oh wow!
Stem cell therapy, yes. Pretty pricey, but I feel I've gotten a lot out of it. But I've always kept up my weight training, my cardio work. Every morning I start, including this morning, with 4 minutes at 44 degrees in the ice plunge. That's
wow.
That's an everyday thing, but it's been so beneficial as far as the inflammation in my body. I just feel so much better doing that every day. And of course, my stretching, I use the hot sauna also. So I eat really clean. My diet is, I would say, on point for the most part. Now, of course, there will be an occasional slice of pie or
Sure.
Of course.
Good Lord, gotta have some fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but for the most part, those are the key things. And for me, at this point, it doesn't seem like the diet part of it's really not that difficult. I'm just sort of used to it. Like yesterday, I grilled out some steaks, and so I do a little bit of meal prep work throughout the week, and I do all the cooking and So Michelle's got it. She's got it made. I do all the cooking. She doesn't have to do anything as far as that goes.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, those are little things that it helps. It really does. That way you're not tempted to eat something if you are traveling. It's just easier.
Yeah. Now, on the road, I think the one thing that has always bothered me, I've been a business owner in administration and hospital, and the one thing that always bothered me, and I've always had a grudge against WWE, especially for it, even though everyone did it, is just the pounding you guys took every week, the travel, the NFL. I listened to one of the Raiders, I think it was Ben Davidson, who once said, we get to rest, wrestlers don't. He said they go every day, and he said it's wrong. And to me, I know they're stressed to make money and to keep on top, but are you kind of glad there are companies now that aren't grinding people to dust? Because wrestlers you're not going to say, I will. Wrestlers passed away because they just did too much. I mean, and when you're in so much pain, it's not that you're weak. You have to take things to just get through the day. Was it your hope that maybe something would change in the wrestling industry? And I think it has a little bit, even though the booking may not be that great. But that's my own thing. But is there something that you kind of hoped when you were in the wrestling business at that time that something would change, or you just kind of accepted this is the way it was?
Well, during that era, that's sort of just the way it was. Unfortunately, you really did need time off to recover, just not only physically, but mentally. You needed a break from it. And during that time, the only time that, for me personally, I remember when I would get breaks is when I would have an injury, which that means surgery, which means going through the whole process of rehabilitation and then back into the ring again as fast as you possibly could, because you were not on a guaranteed contract. So times changed and they got better, and working with WCW and with Eric Bischoff, things got much, much better, and it continues today. The schedules are much more beneficial as far as the grind. Yes, there are times that you do, I'm sure they'll do 10 or 12 day loop, maybe more, but overall, it's definitely better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen fan. Did you have much interaction with them in New Japan?
All Japan. When we won.
All Japan, not New. Yeah.
No worries. When those titles you see back over there, was one of them. The All Japan titles, Stan Hansen presented us those when we won those.
Wow.
Bryan Adams and myself, yes. So I love Stan Hansen, a huge fan. I talked to Stan a couple months ago, and he's doing well, but just a great guy, an absolute legend, as you know. But I was a huge fan of his work, yes.
Yeah, and you guys making it Japan, boy, that was just everywhere you went, you excelled. And you must take great pride, even though I don't think that certain places treated you properly. You must take a lot of pride because you really did seem to really love it, and you put your all into it. I may be the only person, but I love Atom Bomb, so I thought it was okay. Kronik was the one that got me, and I loved Wrath.
Yeah.
And I think you have the record for people putting up Wrath's music on YouTube. There are dozens of things with Wrath's music, entrance music. But you must take a lot of pride in your career, even though some people, I think, may not respect it as much as they should. You were great. You had a great career.
Wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that. We did all right. I said, 3 world championships, and I've always loved the business, and from a young age. I was, like I said, former military veteran, but also former collegiate football player. But my true love was pro wrestling, and I sort of checked the bucket list and was able to do all 3. So, yeah, I felt we were really successful, and I wrestled some of the biggest names in the business from top to bottom during my era, and traveled the world so many times. And so,
Yep.
Yeah, I have been blessed, yes.
Yeah, and you beat up The Undertaker. Who can
Yes.
say that?
I have been in a few caskets. I have been in my
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, The Undertaker's gonna eventually get you, but you got to get your hits in. But Bryan, we don't want to take too much of your time. You've been gracious to us, and we thank you so much. And we are going to be plastering your stuff everywhere that there
Yes.
is. I even have some AI stuff I really want to do on Bryan and see if we can. this is a good man, and they have a great podcast. There's good people. You don't have to take a shower after watching them. I know some of these podcasts get way too carried away. Yeah. But it's great information, great guests, professionally done, but in a very, if you're a fan of the 80s and 90s or the 90s and 2000 wrestling, this is a must listen. And he doesn't want to talk about his numbers, but his numbers are going up on every podcast, and that shows that people love it. So this is the next big thing. I'm telling you, this is going to be great, and we love supporting it. But Bryan, thank you so much for coming on. You're just a blessing to the wrestling community. I've always been a huge fan of you and Bryan Adams, and I just thank you for all the enjoyment you gave, kind of as they call marks, you gave us over the years.
Yeah, we appreciate this so much.
Yeah, hey, I thank you both for having me. I appreciate it. Like the Meltdown has been so much fun, and we keep it positive. Like I said about keeping it clean, it's sort of easy. If you keep it positive, it sort of stays clean, you know?
Yeah.
And
we're the same way.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Positivity, keeping it clean for all ages.
That's the same way you look at it. And with Tom as my co-host, like I said, he's been great. And we play games on there. Like we've got these new parts that we're doing to add to the show, and we're getting huge comments. Such people are like, "Oh, I love that! I got to see that again." So we're, we're just adding bits and pieces to it, and just trying to make it better so that everyone, enjoys it.
It's an exciting time. So again, check out Bryan's called The Meltdown, and I'm telling you, we're going to have links everywhere. We're going to just keep posting it. It's going to start, you guys aren't going to be used to it, but after a while, this is going to get huge ratings. And we could always say we were kind of the church mice that helped him at the very start. But Bryan, we hope to have you on again, and you're not a stranger. As we say, we don't have guests, we have friends. And like I said, Kronik for life. I love Kroniks, and I love Bryan Clark and Bryan Adams. So thank you again for coming. Stick with us, and thank you, everyone. We want to thank you all for the Emmett Smith love. Gosh, dang, that doesn't end.
Great. I watched that. Excellent.
Thank you so much. And
wonderful.
Barbara Corcoran.
Shark Tank.
They're reaching out to us again. So we've got another special A-list. They're going to come on. So we've got so many things on our show, but thank you for your loyalty and your kindness. Our hearts are yours. So till next time. And also, we are going to do it. That we might have to take a shower. Our true crime show is going to go. Yes. We're going to do a live show next week, venturing into the Diddy trial. So this one isn't for the kids. So again, thank you all for your kindness and your support. Take care and have a great week.
Yeah, thank you so much.